Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Let's Dev, where today we're continuing work on our Phasmophobia cross-minute mashup. Now, last time we continued working on translating tools from Phasmophobia into something that could work in the world of Minit. Our main focus was placed on getting the spirit box to work, which required building a sequencer and several tweaks to the existing code. The results were probably the best we're gonna get in terms of translations. The inventory system also saw some changes, so players could now light items such as candles and smudge sticks. All in all, a productive endeavor, which we continue on with today's plan. Today we will continue to add more of the interactive tools from Phasmophobia into the game. And assuming all goes well, we'll move on to other tools still left to be translated. And finally, we'll assess the current state of the project and see if everything still holds up. It sounds simple enough, so let's get to the coding. The first tool up was the Ouija board. And just a note, for the sake of testing, we'll be using the same parameters for all sequences. Anyway, much like the spirit box, the ghost would respond based on proximity, and it could also randomly choose to simply not respond at all. The draw code was updated, then it was time to test. And funny enough, the code initially didn't work, because I've been away from the project for a while and forgot how everything worked. But eventually, yes, the code would work, and much like the spirit box, the player could prompt the ghost for a response with the Ouija board. And with that working, we could now move on to our next interactive tool, the book. Once again, just like before, code for the book was added using similar parameters as our other interactables. Conditionals were also added to the other tools to make sure that they could only be used if they were actually turned on. Next, in the sequence for the book, I had the ghost randomly decide to write in the book, setting the book state to true. And if the book is already set to true, then the response would always be a positive, else the response would be negative. Seems simple enough. However, once again, testing showed that the code was not working. And no kidding, I spent over half an hour combing through the code trying to figure out what went wrong. And the cause of the issue is embarrassing. The first issue was I forgot to add the book to the draw code, so I modified that conditional to prevent this from ever being an issue in the future. However, that was only half the issue. The other issue is I used the wrong variable in the sequence. In other words, this whole ordeal was caused due to not paying enough attention to the details. Anyway, with those issues resolved, yes, we finally had a working book. The ghost could write in the book just fine, and thus my fear that we need to add more variables just for the book were quelled. So, with the book finally working and remaining time very limited, I decided to test one more thing, the camera. First, we'd need a vision cone to represent the camera's view distance. Then an object was created that would follow the player and face the direction of the mouse's position. Then in the player code, the view cone was created. The cone was then activated/deactivated depending on the state of the player's camera tool. This ended up working out well, providing us with a view cone object in all its temporarily vibrant pinkness. And I decided to go with an object because, again, it seemed like the most simple option. So back to the code, another event was added to the interactivity check and tool sequencer bits. However, the times for this sequence would be shorter and the event left blank because I'm not exactly sure how to handle taking photos just yet. Next, a collision/state check for the ghost was added to the vision cone, which would be reflected in a color switch. The test showed promise with the view changing color when coming in contact with the ghost, which means that technically our camera event should be working. However, similar to the flashlight issue, the collision can be detected through walls. To solve this, I added a collision line check, and if a wall was detected while also colliding with the ghost, the state would be set to false. And this almost worked perfectly. Facing a ghost straight on would allow the cone to quote-unquote see the ghost, but with a wall between the player and said ghost would keep the quote-unquote see state set to false. The only issue now was that even when the ghost can be quote-unquote seen, if the collision line also touches a wall afterward, then the state is switched to false. In other words, I was gonna have to do some rethinking in regards to the quote-unquote vision-based tools. I have a few ideas before having to resort to math, but at this point I had been recording for a while and I was in dire need of a break. So we'll have to continue this creative brainstorming next time. And with that brings us to the end of today's episode of Let's Dev. So leave a like if you enjoyed the episode, subscribe and turn on notifications if you haven't already, and leave your thoughts on our progress in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.